The Atlanta Braves split their doubleheader with the Philadelphia Phillies, losing game 1 5-4 and winning game 2 9-3. But at what cost? Let's talk about it.
This is the Braves POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Braves. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into the Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. That's Jake Mastriani, host of Locked On Braves. Catch him on social media at Shortstopball. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves, wherever you get your podcast, like on YouTube. And Jake, 2 games today, so 18 innings of baseball. Always a good day when that happens. 5-4 loss in game 1. 9-3 victory in game 2. But I can't help but think, despite not getting swept in the series, and salvaging one of these games, the cost today was rather significant. AJ Smith-Shawver goes on the injured list after game 1 with what appears as of now to be a very severe elbow injury. They officially called it an elbow sprain, I think, or strain. Stuart Fairchild dislocates his finger in a gruesome gruesome slide at second base. And then Nick Allen leaves game 2 after being hit by a pitch on the hand. Would you have rather kept all 3 guys healthy and just lost today than split the series but lose some of these guys?
Oh, no, the Braves need to win so bad. I mean, you hate to sacrifice some people for it to happen, but I think the AJ Smith-Shawver one hurts the most, maybe because it sounds the most severe, but you got a young kid who finally seemed to be figuring it out at the big league level. And I know he gave the home run and was looking kind of shaky that second time through the order, but those first 2 innings, I thought he looked fantastic. So you really just feel for him. And again, we're still hoping for the best. Certainly don't love it for Nick Allen either. I mean, you had finally found your shortstop. You just let Orlando Arcia go, making Nick Allen the man. And then here he is taking a pitch on the wrist. But again, haven't heard on the severity of that either. We'll check throughout to see if we get an update before we finish. But yeah, obviously don't love the injuries, but the Braves needed a win. I mean, especially the way that you lost the first game or first 2 games really this series. And then, to already be so far back. And I know the NL East race, maybe it's a pipe dream at this point, but you just felt like you couldn't get swept by the Phillies. So they had to at least salvage one in this one. But you're right, it came in at a high price.
Yeah, a sweep today, it kind of feels like would have put the final nail in the mostly closed coffin of somehow winning the National League East this year. I don't want to get into, all 18 innings of what happened in every single inning there, but I do want to talk about game 1 because Atlanta went through, you used the entire bench. Some of that was obviously you had to replace Fairchild with Acuna and all of that. But you saw the Braves put up 13 hits, 4 runs, and it felt like the big story there, especially in that 9th inning, was just some of the missed opportunities, right? You go in the 9th inning, Ozzie always walks to open the game. He's thrown out trying to steal second base. This wasn't JT Realmuto. This was backup Rafael Marchand, who apparently just went nuclear today. He also hit a home run, a lot of stuff here. And then you load the bases again, and you have a strikeout looking to end the game. And it kind of feels like that's a microcosm of kind of how the season's gone for Atlanta. Even when they're able to go in there and string together multiple hits and get the guys on, something happens and they can't quite seal the deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's been the issue all year. They've been getting base runners on. It's just getting them in. And in that game, like you said, 13 hits. I mean, they had plenty of opportunities, plenty of base runners. The caught stealing, look, I've been pushing for them to be more aggressive on the bases, but you got to be good at it. And look, the one from Ozzie in the 9th inning, it took a perfect throw. It took a perfect catch. It took a perfect tag. And maybe after seeing Stuart Fairchild break his finger, Ozzie decided to go in feet first. I'm not really sure what that was about. I don't know that would have made a difference, but it took all 3 of those things being perfect to get Ozzie out. So again, I think you have to be aggressive, but you also have to be better at it. And I thought it was a good jump. Snit said after the game, he didn't think it was a good jump. I thought he actually got a good jump. It was just, like I said, all three facets of that had to be perfect, and they were to get Ozzie there. So unfortunate the way the rest of the inning unfolded. You never know if those things are going to play out the same or not, but you end up loading the bases like you said. Eli White strikes out looking at a pitch that looked to be a ball below the strike zone, but maybe too close to take in that situation. So yeah, just frustrating. I mean, you had opportunities throughout, although I know we'll get into the pitching side. You had an opportunity late, and two of your best relievers gave up a run. I mean, the offense scored 4 runs, which is generally the magic number for this team. So I was actually encouraged. I was encouraged with the fight that you saw in them falling behind early and the offense continuing to battle back. And like I said, even in that 9th inning, getting the bases loaded and giving yourself a chance there. And I think that kind of bled over in what we saw in game 2.
Yeah. Looking at, I'm going to stick with game 1. A little bit different setup today. Just stick with game 1. Pierce Johnson gives up the home run to Kyle Schwarber. And then Daysabel Hernandez. This is another kind of shaky outing we saw from Daysabel. Yeah. He gives up a hit. He walks 2. This is what we talked about earlier in the week when we talked about, like, you can't just pull Iglesias from the closer role and stick Daysabel in there. He still has these walk issues, these control issues. He ends up taking the loss there. I don't really know at this point, short of bringing in some money from the outside, what you do about the bullpen, because like it does come back to the offense. Yes, if the offense was scoring more runs, they wouldn't have to be perfect in the bullpen. But it just feels like recently we've seen even the reliable guys, your Pierce Johnsons, your Dylan Lees, and then Daysabel start to regress a little bit. Even they're giving up too many runs too often to keep the team in it.
Yeah, I mean, it was the biggest concern for most of us coming into the season was the bullpen, and the front office didn't address it other than bringing in a bunch of has-beens and hoping that they figure it out. And so far, none of it's really worked out. Hector Neris isn't here anymore. Rafael Montero probably shouldn't be here anymore. Greg Kimbrell's still not here. Jordan Weems no longer in the organization. All these guys who have been good in the past that they tried to bring in on these cheap deals, they haven't worked out. And so you're having to rely on a bit of unknowns in a Daysabel who has all the talent in the world, but he has these command issues. You're relying on a Dylan Lee who's been fantastic. I mean, but he's obviously unproven in some of these big spots like this. And Pierce Johnson, who I think regressed a little bit last year, but he's been good this season. He just left a curveball up. And after CJ Nitkowski had just said lefties have been hitting his curveball well this year, and he hangs one to Kyle Schwarber, who absolutely destroyed it. So, it's just, again, we kind of knew this coming into the season that you didn't replace Joe Jimenez. You were going to be relying on some guys that have been good and have good stuff, but kind of unproven in these close late game situations, and you're kind of paying for that. So, like you said, I don't know what else you do. I don't think Kimbrell's the answer. Maybe he's better than Montero, so maybe he becomes your 7th and 8th guy in the bullpen, but unless Lara figures it out really quickly down there, unless some of these prospects, a Hayden Harris, a Roldy Munoz, they just called up to AAA, and Ellison Joseph, but then you're relying on unproven rookies at that point. So there's just not a ton of great options.
I am going to say Dylan Dodd. It's the first time we've seen him in relief in Atlanta in a while. He didn't get in last time. He threw a couple cutters early. That's been the newer pitch for him that really kind of unlocked a lot of stuff. He gets a strikeout of Bryson Stott, and it's fastball, cutter to get the strikeout. He gets Trey Turner to fly out. And it's just almost all cutter there. I thought that was good. I'm okay with him being in there, but again, you can't throw him into high leverage right away when you keep him up at the major league level. I will say the positive from this game, short of just the fight and the competitiveness that they showed, is that felt like the whole vibe of this game changed once Ronald Acuna Jr. checked in place of Stuart Fairchild, who, couldn't continue with the finger injury. He goes 2 for 2, RBI, a run. And it just felt like at that point, the team seemed a little more competitive at the plate. Obviously, they couldn't get it done at the very end, but it just felt like that was a little bit of a positive lift to the guys here.
Yeah, I believe he's on deck to end the game, right, too? So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, I get it. You want to be careful with him coming back from injury, so you weren't going to play him in both of these games or start him in both of these games. But man, it would have been nice to have that guy in there from the jump in game one, especially with the way that he ended up performing. But I mean, that's what he is. He's a spark plug. I mean, that's he's your best player for a reason. So it's going to hurt whenever he's not in there. But when he is, I mean, even in the second game, he didn't have a hit or anything, but was able to get on base, and he does so many things outside of just getting hits. It's the way that other teams have to approach him. You have to game plan around Ronald. You pitch differently when Ronald's on deck or when Ronald's on the bases. So he just does so many things for you to help you win games.
Yep. Okay. In just a second, we'll talk about game 2, Chris Sale versus Zach Wheeler. Atlanta's somehow mastery of Zach Wheeler this year. We'll get to all that next, right here on the Braves Postcast. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller for longer. Whether you're running between meetings, dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. You've got both a no shells variety. It's a great grab and go snack. You're in the car, your desk, whatever. Or if you just want to crack open each shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with the nut that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Okay, Jake. So the Braves win game 2, 9-3. And this one didn't really feel like it was out of hand. I'm sorry. This one never really felt like this wasn't in hand. Once you started getting on the board, you put up a 4 spot in the 4th inning. Yes, Philly got a little frisky late. They put up 3 runs off the bullpen late. But this one felt pretty... as comfortable as you're going to get from the 2025 Atlanta Braves. And I think it all kind of comes back to Chris Sale and how well he did. 6 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts. He continues to not really use that changeup, but he continues to just be back to the dominant version of Chris Sale that we know.
Yeah, I mean, once you put up a 4 spot on Zach Wheeler and Chris Sale, looked like he was rolling. I mean, you felt pretty good. The only time it got a little uncomfortable was that 5th inning when got the bases loaded for Alec Bohm, but then Chris Sale got a big out there to get out of that jam. But yeah, Braves need more wins like this, where you put up 6 runs early and you get Chris Sale and the good pitchers that the Braves have had, starters that they've had on the mound, and you don't have to worry about trying to preserve a 1-run lead late with Daysville and Dylan Lee and Pierce Johnston and Iggy and these guys. So would love to see more of that. Great effort, like I said, by this offense after seeing the fight in game 1. Again, I think that carried over into game 2, and you saw them put up some good at-bats, knock Zach Wheeler out of this game early, who had been on a run. He was probably going to win pitcher of the month, and now Chris Sale might win pitcher of the month. So Chris Sale just, he's outdueled Garrett Crochet and Zach Wheeler in a week and a half span here. So he's back to just being that Chris Sale being the best pitcher in baseball. The Braves absolutely needed in the second game of this to help them salvage this series.
Yeah. I think it's important to point out Chris Sale broke 2,500 strikeouts in this game, according to the Elias Sports Bureau, and credit to the Braves comms team for getting this out to us pretty quickly. Chris Sale is the fastest in MLB history to 2,500 innings. He did it in 2,500 strikeouts. He did it in 2,026 innings. The previous record was Randy Johnson, 2,107 2/3 innings. So Chris Sale, not only dominant tonight, dominant in his career, and really, to your point of how good he's been in May, his last 7 starts now, 1.42 ERA, 54 strikeouts, 12 walks, and 44 1/3 innings. This is Cy Young Sale. This is what we needed. And the flip side, in 2 games this year, the Braves have scored 11 runs off of Zach Wheeler. His other 10 starts combined, he's allowed 14 runs. I don't know what it is about the Braves and Zach Wheeler. It feels like every year there's that one pitcher that they should not be dominated by, who just tears Atlanta up. And there's that one guy who is very, very good that they have his number. And Zach Wheeler, they obviously have his number. He has a 1.93 ERA when he's not facing the Braves.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what to make of it. I mean, he's obviously been good against the Braves in the past, but for whatever reason this year, the Braves have been able to get to him, but yet they can't get to, the fourth and fifth starters for other teams. It's great to see it happen.
They get 2 hit by Colorado, but they get Zach Wheeler.
It's great to see it happen against a good pitcher and a great pitching matchup like this, but it also just makes it all the more frustrating when you can't score against, some of the worst pitchers in the league.
Yeah. All right. So which offense are you happier with? Game 1, 4 runs on 13 hits, or game 2, not as many hits, but you get multiple home runs. You finish with 8 hits. You score 9 because you draw 8 walks. Because it feels like game 1 is a very traditional Braves kind of game. Game 2 feels like it's what the Braves have been trying to do with their approach. Right? Like you hit a couple home runs, yes, but you drew a bunch of walks, you got on base, you did some station-to-station stuff, and you scored some runs. And it feels like you can win some games with offense number 1. Offense number 2, this Braves team, if you had that every night, almost feels like they'd be unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want, and that's what you feel like this lineup is capable of. Like I said, I mean, you do it against a guy like Zach Wheeler, you're capable of doing it against anybody. I thought the offense was just great overall today. Like I said, I know they didn't quite put up the runs in game 1 that you wanted, but I mean, I'll take 13 hits. Unfortunately, the only downside in that game 1 was that only 3 of those hits were extra base hits, and they all came in the same inning. Well, I think he had 4 extra base hits in game 2, and 2 of those were multi-run homers. And that's really the biggest difference for me, other than the walks that you also had in game 2 to help you out. But overall, I thought both of these games were a great look for the offense against 2 really good pitchers. Christopher Sanchez is a good pitcher in his own. So I was really impressed, happy with the performance from the offense today. It's just, I need to see it consistently. I can see it in 2 games like this, especially after what you saw in game 1 of this series, but certainly a step in the right direction and the type of offense that we should be seeing on a near nightly basis. I know you're going to have some off nights every now and then, but we need to see more nights like this consistently because it's what this offense is capable of doing.
Yeah, they only went 1 and 2 in the series, but it felt like they fought pretty well in all 3 games. 2 things I want to get to real quick. Number 1, we just got an update from David O'Brien of The Athletic. X-rays were negative on Nick Allen's hand, so as of now, they've not seen any sort of break or anything. Obviously, I'm sure they'll rescan him again tomorrow in Atlanta. He may or may not play tomorrow. Ozzie Albies, he's batting .321 in the last 15 games. He hit the home run today. He had a dreadful start to the year. It was one of the worst slumps of his career. And it feels like he's really now coming out of it and is back to not quite the usual Ozzie Albies that we've seen, but a much better version. Do you have any confidence that this turnaround has been enough to sustain and to keep being an above average offensive performer going forward? Like, it feels, I know I asked you this last week or earlier in the week, and you'd kind of said it feels a little fluky. It's a bunch of soft hits and things like that. The powers finally started to show up. So I don't quite know, is this legitimately sustainable what he's doing?
I certainly hope so. Look, Ozzie Albies has been a very streaky hitter throughout his career. And we know this. His lows can be very low, but his highs can be extremely high. And you just have to ride that roller coaster and hope that he stays healthy the entire year. And when he does that, he's usually one of the better offensive second basemen in baseball. I talked about this, that I thought in the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season, I thought the at-bats were really good from Ozzie. And like many Braves hitters at that point, they just weren't getting rewarded for their good at-bats. And then that kind of led into the slump and the cold streak. But now you're kind of seeing him come out of that. I think maybe what I'm most impressed by, he's had at least 1 walk in 4 straight games. That is not something you typically see from Ozzie Albies. So you're seeing a little bit more patience from him. Now you're starting to see a little bit of power. He had a double the other night, had the home run today. So I mean, again, I know it was a really rough stretch for Ozzie, but we've seen him have really cold stretches, break out of it, and have these extreme highs too. And I just think we're in one of those extreme highs. I wouldn't be surprised if he slumps again and goes into another big cold streak, but that's just the roller coaster of Ozzy Albies.
Yeah, that is the Ozzy Albies experience. All right, so again, Braves split the doubleheader today, 5-4 loss in game 1, 9-3 victory in game 2. They're now heading back to Atlanta for 3 against the Boston Red Sox. Yes, they played them just 2 weeks ago. That's the new schedule, how MLB works. Some really interesting pitching matchups in this one. Lucas Giolito versus Grant Holmes on Friday night. That's an Apple TV game. Walker Buehler versus Spencer Schwellenbach on Saturday. Garrett Crochet versus Spencer Strider on Sunday. Jake will be back tomorrow with Locked On Braves. Do us a favor. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to both Locked On Braves and Locked On Sports Atlanta. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live to talk about the next Braves victory. For Jake Mastriani, I'm Lindsey Crosby. This has been the Braves Postcast.